stuff was...
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Flattering.
Yeah. This first scene of Sherry, we shot Sherry doing stuff for Little Mermaid, but also for Vanessa when the witch turns sort of evil. So on this scene, you'll note the elaborate special effects are handled by Glenn Keane, who doubled not only as an animator, but watch the person who's carrying an object near Sherry in this first clip. So let's just run this clip, and you'll see Sherry and Glenn. And if you look over in this corner, you'll see Ron.
Wait, we're here, Sandy. We're rolling. Really are.
What did you think? What was that like?
Oh, well, it was grand fun. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. I mean, it was just, I've been a fan of animation since I was a toddler, and especially Disney animation. And when I got the job to do this, I had read the script, and I thought the script was extraordinary. And to work with these guys, it was an amazing experience. And they're all geniuses in their own right. And I think Jodie certainly gave me everything with her voice. I mean, the emotion was all there. And Ron and John, of course, had things laid out, and as did Glenn. But, I mean, you had a lot laid out. And the thing that's funny about Glenn is that he says that he was used to animating beasts and animals. Well, she was half animal, half human, so that there was a certain animalistic way that you would show me how to do stuff. And do you remember the one thing I'll say is that there was that, when she's on the rocks and she's coming up high and she's singing Part of Your World, he actually did that for me, and I wish they had that on film.
I'm so glad. Let's go to that clip right now. No.
Unfortunately, we don't have that clip with us, but yes, it was the burliest mermaid you've ever seen.
But it was delightfully specific, and how it would work is very simply, and they would send me like maybe 3 or 4 minutes of Jodie's track a couple times a month. It would be blocked out. I would go, I'd do it a few times, and then you guys would use that as reference.
There may have been like 10 sessions over 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
We're sort of joking about it, but it really is true that Ariel is these 3 people. I mean, and then if you know them, you can see each one of them in the character. I mean, you can see Jodie completely in the character. You can see Glenn, he's all over the character. And Sherry is in there. And it's the only kind of medium where something like that can kind of happen.
We have one more clip of Sherry we should show, which is from Part of Your World. So you're going to hear Jodie's voice and Sherry's visual performance. And Glenn, if you listen off stage, I think you may hear Glenn talking to the cameraman about how he wants the camera moved toward. This is the shot in the movie in Part of Your World where the camera seems to track around her, and it's sort of an unusual shot for a hand-drawn film. So we put Sherry on a little stool that we're spinning in space. Again, very cheesy, but she sings. You hear Jodie's track sung with great conviction, as she did on that tape, and then Sherry likewise is trying to give that track expression as guided sort of by Glenn, who's really directing kind of her performance. And so why don't we show that clip? It's just
Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Wouldn't you think I'm a girl who has everything? And this drum, treasures untold. How many wonders I've never known. Looking around your feet.
All right.
It'll be available on Mommy after the show.
The other never got better than that.
Yeah. The other person that's really, I think we all agree, is a big part of Ariel is Howard and Alan, really, because before the songs are recorded, Howard and Alan would perform them and sing them, and a lot of times, as Jodie said in that clip, the performances were really an inspiration for what the actors did. Alan, can you talk a little bit about that demoing process and how you work with Howard?
Well, Howard and I always considered our demos to be the blueprints for the performances and for the orchestration. And with Little Mermaid, we were for the first time, as opposed to working at a piano with a tape recorder, I began working on computer and working to MIDI. And so actually with Little Mermaid, all of our original demos, we remove Howard's and my voices, and Howard was an incredible performer. Unfortunately, you can't get these. There was a box set called Music Behind the Magic, which I could be a shill for, except you can't get it, so maybe on eBay. But Howard's great performance as Ursula or as Mrs. Potts, and my lovely performances as Ariel. But you see in those performances the blueprint for what we wanted these songs to become. And then we would remove our voices, and these MIDI tracks were then transposed, and actually Jody and the rest of the singers would record to these MIDI tracks, and at the very end of the process, we then took away the MIDI tracks and added orchestration, which was kind of a backwards way to do it, but it saved money.
Right, and in those days we didn't have all the money. There's a really interesting thing on the DVD, and those of you who are a fan of this movie, which is probably all of us here tonight, there's a spectacular DVD coming out in a few weeks on this film. Yeah, it's great. A lot of the things we're talking about are on that disc, but Alan, this was your first movie as a score composer.
Yeah, well, Howard talked me into that.
You'd never written a film score before this?
Never, no. And I had never thought about scoring films. And I remember when Howard and I were having lunch, and he said, "You need to score this movie." I said, "I don't know how to score a movie." He says, "Well, look, when you do our musicals, you do the underscore, under dialogue into a song. You do the music within the song under the, under the scene or underscoring some piece of business. And then you're doing all of the connected music. So you certainly can do a score." I said, "Oh, okay." So I basically started the process of learning how to score a movie, and I think I did a fairly okay job.
I think so. I think we agree.
Given an Oscar for, but one thing I grew up. It was fun learning on the job.
Yeah, and you've done quite well since, I would say. I want to go back to Jody and Ron and John. The process of recording Ariel's performance doesn't happen in a day or 2 or 10. How long did it take to create that performance? How many times did you come in?
Well, I think I was about 14 days over the course of 2.5 years. Is that about right? 14 days. And
we recorded Part of Your World the first time. There were technical difficulties because we had the wrong microphone for Jody. And
7 hours.
Yeah, so there was some problems with that, and we didn't realize at the time. We're like, well, what can we do? And then finally we changed it out to get the right microphone, and amazingly it worked much better then. But it was, but that was we were learning on the job too. We really had never recorded a musical before like that, and so it was a learning experience for us. But we videotaped Jody when she was singing the song, like Glenn mentioned, so we had that reference to look at for Glenn and for us to be inspired by. So her performance sort of carried through beyond that. But Jody, of course, did the singing voice. Sometimes we have an actress who can't sing as well as act, but Jody did it all. So we got her, and she was great with the very spontaneous readings as well as the things that were more sort of calculated or slower or that sort of thing. But her laughs and her giggles and all that.
You guys were behind the glass, and Howard was right next to me. So he is just pulling everything out. Now these two are behind the glass laughing, right? And you're pushing the button. I'm like, what are you guys talking about back there?
It's very lonely.
Yeah, I was in the room with them, and we're behind soundproof glass.
They were behind the glass, but Howard was right there. For every single line, he was right there. And he would play all the characters, so if I needed to cry, he was standing there screaming at me. I mean, it was really frightening. He was great. I mean, he just pulled it all out, because he's like, we're going to do this like we're on stage doing a Broadway show. We're going to do this. I'm going to be the scene. I'm going to do the scene with you right here. And I don't know, it just worked. It was just,
I should say that where I normally would be there, I was stuck in Philadelphia doing The Apprenticeship with Lenny Kravitz, a musical that no one will ever hear.
Anyone?
But getting reports from Howard about the learning process of how we were doing it. We learned a lot on Little Mermaid.
We were saying what was great too about the movies that Alan and Howard, most of the songs other than Part of Your World, were composed right in the building with us. They came out to California.
1420 Flower Street.
Yeah, in Flower Street. And